first of all going to introduce you to Chris and Lawrence, our speakers from Champion Data. So I welcome Chris Hume. With over 20 years experience as a board member and executive leader in the sports industry, Chris holds an MBA from IMD in Switzerland and bachelor's degrees in engineering and commerce from the University of Melbourne. Through tactical and strategic execution, Chris has grown 2 startups into successful businesses. As the Director of Champion Data, Chris has transformed the Australian operations and business into a recognised global leader in the world of sports, data and technology. With nearly 500 staff joining the course across the globe. Chris spearheads Champion Data's strategic vision and leads business decisions to deliver an unparalleled experience and service to clients, staff and fans. Chris's role within the business now strongly focuses on expanding Champion Data's footprint into new regions, managing major licenses and mentoring Champion Data and its employees. This all began with a strong base in mathematics, which was delivered to him by a series of dedicated and talented teachers over 18 years of primary, secondary, tertiary and postgraduate education. So Chris will be our first speaker. I'm also going to introduce our second speaker so that Champion Data can just do their thing for you. Second speaker will be Lawrence Lifson, who is the data team lead. And Lawrence has an extensive background deeply rooted within the digital and data worlds, with a Master of Business Analytics from Melbourne Business School, this very place. He built the foundations of his career by leading the digital and data teams at no less than BP, and prior to that, as an IT consultant at Accenture. Lawrence now heads the data team at Champion Data, responsible for developing innovative metrics that tell the story behind the game. His expert team covers data analytics and data science domains, utilising techniques ranging from simple averages to advanced machine learning algorithms. So, without further ado, I welcome Champion Data to the podium. We've got yours loaded up first, Chris, I believe. Just a little
thank you.
There. That will forward your...
Thanks. Thank you. Just getting familiar with the room. Thanks for that introduction. I didn't write that myself, by the way. It sounded a little bit generous, but yeah, everything that was in there has happened. So I think before I get into myself and Champion and what we do, we've got a small corporate video. As we're going global, we'd just like to play this to give you an idea of what we do, and then I'll get into the presentation.
Champion Data, the story behind the game. Data is at the heart of the sports industry, both on and off the field. Protection of that data is critical. Kicking off 20 years ago in the sporting hub of Australia, we now lead the way in sport data platforms. Our unique and powerful blend of agile technology, data analytics, and dynamic broadcast design makes Champion Data your ultimate global partner. Data integrity is our DNA. We specialize in the fusion of data with advanced platform technology to deliver reliable data live and fast. We future-proof our clients' investment in sport. We're all about the game. We play for the coaches, the leagues, and the fans. Our teams are curious and passionate experts, committed to enhancing the world of sport. Our data-driven stories ignite broadcasts, empower wagering markets, and create enhanced value for sporting organizations and industry stakeholders. We make every sporting moment count, bridging the gap between complex data sets, sophisticated technology, and the stories of the sports we love. We proudly play in the global transformation of sport. Champion Data, the story behind the game.
Okay, maybe I'll just spend 5 minutes explaining a bit more about Champion Data, then about myself and how through a maths education I was able to create this business, essentially, with a heck of a lot of help from a lot of other people who are good at maths. So, yeah, Champion Data is 25 years old. It started off with the hypothesis that sports, there's a whole lot of storytelling, which is the story behind the game, through stats and data and numbers in sport, which weren't being utilised. So it started off by me going to the football, and it was simple as me watching a game and hearing this player got this many kicks and this player got that many marks, and that was all we had. And I said, well, if you watch the game, Dermot Brereton, might have had half the number of kicks of some sort of midfielder, but he had a much bigger influence. So that was literally the hypothesis of building the company, and that was back in 1994 when I was working for Accenture. And I went off and did a whole lot of things, which I'll come to in a minute, but I was very fortunate that I actually started a sports internet company called Sportal, which was doing the AFL website, and we ended up, another guy called Ted Hopkins, who played for Carlton, actually founded Champion Data. The exact same business plan. I had a company called Edge Information, did the hard yards for the first 4 or 5 years, then it got a bit sort of much for him, so I had the opportunity to put my house on the line and buy the company when it was very small, and luckily for me it all worked out. So we didn't have to sell the house, and the rest is history. So that's how we got started. So Champion now, fast forward 25 years, we've got nearly 500 people. That includes our casual workforce, so about 150 to 100 full-timers, and we're in Australia mainly. We've got a development team here, about 110 people in Melbourne full-time, and then we've got teams in LA. Our CTO's moved to London to do some really cool projects, and we've got a team in Vietnam, Singapore and Poland. So we're really laying this global footprint because the kind of business that we've created here really does stand up overseas. So there's there's three key parts of the business. One is what we do in Australia, which we do with the AFL. So we collect statistics live. So we have 10 people at every game. We're trying to bring that down with AI and ML to 6, but do more. But right now we still have 10. We collect all the data. We have 5 at the venues, such as the MCG or wherever we're playing Marvel or anywhere around Australia. And then we have 5 in our bunker, which is just down here in South Bank. People just call the game through binoculars, and we do the data entry. We collect it once, we put it through our platform. Then any AFL stat you see comes from Champion Data. So that includes anything that's broadcast on Fox or Channel 7, anything on the AFL app or the website, anyone, ESPN or any other digital publisher, the scoreboards in the venues, the commentators reading them out, people like Tabcorp and sports betting. Whether or not you believe in sports betting, they still need data to run their business. And also, importantly, the coaches, who are our first clients. So the coaches take a live data feed into their coach's box and make decisions based on the stats that we're collecting. So it's like, there's that saying, data is the new oil. We believe in that. And if you look, if our feed goes down, the whole industry can't operate in terms of, that even includes the scores. So everyone actually needs what we do. And then out of that sort of stats collection, we built this incredible technical capability. Lawrence and his team then take the raw data and do a whole analytics layer. So creating insights from data, and that's simple things like contested possessions or pressure metrics. There's a lot of maths behind all that we. Some of them are subjective and some of them are very formulaic, but we worked out a whole layer of data analytics, which we then push certain stats to the coaches, certain to the media, and other ones to all the other stakeholders I just outlined. So, and then on top of that, Channel 7 and Fox, when they had a problem with their broadcast graphics, they would say, what went wrong? And the graphics provider would blame our feed and would say, no, our feed was fine. So they wanted one supplier, so we went end to end. So now we create all the graphics which appear on the broadcast as a sort of a vertical integration. And because it was much harder to do data than broadcast graphics, we were the natural company that extended into that part of the value chain, and we've been doing that for over 12 years for both Fox and 7. So we built out this incredible model in AFL, and then we've started applying it to netball, where we do the exact same thing, horse racing in Australia, and then we started winning overseas. So the ATP, the Global Tennis Network Tour, which is incredibly valuable data because it comes from the umpire's chair live and Hawkeye, all that data. That needs to go somewhere and be managed. So they did a worldwide tender, and we won that a year and a half ago. And we built this platform that takes in all the tennis data from every match around the world, does all the above, and now we're working out of London to do the ATP. And another one is Live Golf, which is the new golf league for anyone who follows golf. It's a bit controversial of how it was funded and everything, but at the front end, they've got a real company with some very good people from ESPN and CBS and all those sort of people. Again, they did a worldwide tender, and we won the work to do the data platform, all the broadcast graphics, and Lawrence's team does the data analytics. So again, that's an end-to-end service which is pumping out content globally. And Bryson DeChambeau, who's one of their star players, just came second on the weekend in a major. So that's all. There's a lot of storylines there. So that's what we do now. We've got a couple of other very exciting projects which we can't quite announce that are going to be delivered overseas and domestically. So just think about sports we're not doing yet that we'd like to do. So that's sort of where we're heading. So we worked out this formula, and it was incremental. It wasn't like we had this vision of doing all the above when we started. And I think we got an interesting piece of feedback from the head of Fox Footy when that was first established 15 years ago by a guy called Rob Law. He said the reason Champion Data has succeeded while others have sort of come and gone is we work from the inside out, which means we start by talking in AFL, as an example, to the coaches who actually coach the players to win or lose a game. And they will tell us, we want these stats, because they're the kind of things that we need as coaches to understand to coach the team. And so we might be a pressure metric, for example. We did a whole lot of R&D. How do you measure pressure at any moment? And we came up with 7 pressure acts, like no pressure, corralling pressure, tackling pressure, and each of the possessions that comes throughout the game, we allocate one of these 7 pressure acts. It has to be one, and that reveals a whole series of insights about which players can play well under pressure and keep well under pressure, and also who's applying the pressure, which, small forwards and that whole role for people who watch football came out of that work. And once one club buys it and it works, it's like an arms race. All 18 clubs then have to buy it. Then all of a sudden, the guy who runs the Herald Sun will say, I keep hearing about this pressure metric. Can we publish that in a newspaper? We said, yep. Pay this much, yep, no problem. So we sell then the pressure metric. It's a very commercial business. We are for profit, no doubt about it. And then he'll say we don't want the age to have it, so he'll pay an exclusivity. And then Fox Footy will say, oh man, there's pressure metrics everywhere. The coaches are talking about it in a press conference. It's in the paper. Can we have it? So yep, you can buy it as well, and we'll make a graphic, and it's called the pressure gauge, and it actually comes up live during a broadcast, and it's a real indication of who's winning or losing a match. And so that's a great example of R&D, which is not led by Lawrence and his team, as smart as they are, because you need to actually coach the teams to have the very first inside-out insight, but then we need the skill to build metrics around that insight, and then to productionise it so it happens live during every one of the 209 games, and then to have the technology to distribute it around the world and around the whole ecosystem. So that's Champion Data. We're quite proud of what we're doing. As I said, I started travelling around the world about 8 or 9 years ago, seeing if we stood up, and we do. We're doing a project in America for FanDuel now on baseball. It's to take all these skills that we've learnt and bring it to their baseball production. So that's the company. And in the context of this theatre, that's our new logo. We've just unveiled it. We're united by sport and driven by data. So that's all we do. We don't, as much as our skills would transfer to a lot of data analytics opportunities outside sport, we just stick to our lane because we think it's a big enough industry, we're a small enough company, it's better to focus and be really, really good at something. So everything we do is in sport, and everything we do is driven by data. Even if it's a broadcast graphic, it might look like a pretty sort of graphic, but it's actually driven by data. Where do we play? We start with the leagues. As I said, we're working with the AFL, ATP, Live Golf, Racing Victoria, a couple of lacrosse leagues, World Netball. Then we work through all the broadcasters, 7, ESPN, Racing.com, Telstra, who are a big digital publisher. We distribute through these sort of middle people, that not many people, and we do present to the sports books. We've got a team in America, England, Poland, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, Philippines. I didn't even know about Sri Lanka. That's good. Okay. And Australia. So there we go. I'm learning something myself today. Me, okay. I don't love talking about myself, but we've deliberately stayed under the radar with all PR and stuff. But this is something that I really believe in, as in education and that. So a quick talk about me. I grew up in Melbourne, East Kew State Primary, and Was I good at maths? Yeah, I was good, but not amazing. There were people who were better than maths at me. Grew up playing sport. Again, Simon, your partner, said I was amazing at football, but that's an exaggeration. I was actually very average. Just make it into the good teams, but solid. Grew up wanting to start a business. My family culture all had small businesses, and so I didn't want to work for a big company. So that's working out pretty well so far. And then working in sports is a privilege, which we appreciate it. So if you're a true sports fan, it's not like every day. It's like, I hear that thing, if you love what you do, you never do a day's work in your life. I think that's a bit of mayonnaise on that. It's actually not that amazing every day. There's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of getting to meetings, doing analytics, pitching, losing pitches. Like, these sort of results don't just happen. It's a result of a lot of consistency and really hard work and sticking to your vision. So, and one little story, I suppose, around maths is, I remember very clearly in year 11, I was good at maths. And back when I did HSC, you could do the two hard maths, pure and applied, or you could do general maths. And, and I was good at physics. That was my best subject. I could do sort of some easier subjects like energy. So anyway, I ended up just applying for general maths, thinking I could get basically 100 for that and do all these other sports and do well. Then just before the deadline, I just thought about it and I thought, well, no, pure and applied, I'm good at maths. That opens up more options. And even though I get worse marks because then I'm against these guys who are clearly better at maths than me, I flipped and I switched from general to pure and applied the day before the applications closed. And that probably set a course looking back, because then I went and did engineering over here at Melbourne Uni, and annoyed me because my friends who did commerce did no hours and much less smart than engineers. So to prove a point, I went out to Ford and worked full time and enrolled in commerce at Melbourne Uni full time while I worked full time. Didn't go to any lectures and still got distinctions. So that proves that engineering is much harder than commerce. So that was just me being stubborn, but I ended up with 2 degrees as a result, and then doing an MBA. Again, I was going to come here to get the Triple Crown at Melbourne Uni, but when I was working at Accenture at the time, a guy put me onto this place in Switzerland. You could do it in 1 year, and it was hard to get into. My workplace funded it, so I went and did an MBA in Switzerland. So all through my story, if you like, right from when I was at primary school through high school, choosing pure and applied in physics and chemistry and English, I used to say, people say, why do you do it? And I say, it's those sort of subjects, and then doing engineering at Melbourne Uni, it's like doing a workout for your brain, like going to the gym for your brain, because you mightn't use all these fancy, algorithms and all the Green's theorem, and if I think back, all the stuff I learned in physics and maths, you don't use it directly, but you learn how to think. And when you've got a situation at work, it's the same principles. Everything collapses back into a framework that you analyse problems with, and it might be a spreadsheet or it might be some sort of other framework, but having that training in maths and problem solving helps in business a lot. In business, you need to add empathy and hard work and teamwork and all that. But if you don't have that engineering background and problem solving ability, then you're missing it. So that's why I feel fortunate and sort of almost privileged to have all these amazing teachers along the way. I can still remember my good maths teachers through high school. After the MBA, I went out to Ford, out at Meadows on the shop floor making cars. That was hard work, because you knew that you weren't as competitive as Japan or Germany, but we made them here, and eventually that shut down, and it was just hard going to work every day knowing that your whole business model is a bit flawed. So that's why I went and did the MBA. I started another company called Sportal, a sports internet company, which led to Champion Data. And I was always thinking, again, through problem solving, instead of working out the here and now, you've got to begin with the end in mind. So you've got to have a goal, and you've got to be stubborn to get to that goal, but also you've got to be flexible. If that goal is a stupid goal, you've got to recognise that at some stage and change your goals, but hopefully within a framework and not completely changing it. So that's it. So that's my story in Champion Data, and any questions you can ask at the end, but I'll hand over to our actual mathematician, Lawrence. Okay.
There's a lot of screens to look at here, so excuse me as my eyes wander. So I did my, I guess, career story in icons, and as you can see, it's got a little bit of an interesting shape to it. So as a kid, I loved playing with Lego, and I loved sports, and particularly sports numbers, collecting footy cards as a kid. I would spend more time on the back of the footy card looking at their stats. Similar to Chris, I loved sports but was never good enough at it to make a career out of it, I thought. Definitely not good enough playing it. I'm hoping to go far in our table tennis competition this afternoon. We'll see if that eventuates. So through school did maths, physics, chemistry, etc. And then in uni, wasn't exactly certain what I wanted to do. So did a double degree in civil engineering, which I thought is the closest thing to building Lego as a job, as well as commerce, because everyone said that keeps your options open. Then when you work out what you want to do, that's going to be valuable wherever you go. So through that degree, really wanted to do sort of construction management, but finished kind of at the end of the global financial crisis where there was very little construction starting up. There were very few jobs available. So speaking to kind of careers folks, they said, have you thought about consulting? They like kind of general skill sets. They really like engineers because of the way you think, your logic, the way you can lay out a problem, etc. So also similar to Chris, was at Accenture for a period. But I was in IT consulting, which was about helping organisations build large software to run their business, non-technical roles. So I did that for 3 years or 4 years, and then sort of poked my head up and thought, I don't love this. I want to do something with numbers again, because that's my skill set, my passion. And so I looked around what there was and saw a Masters of Business Analytics, which they call MBUS-A, so it doesn't get confused with the MBA, in this room. So I spent a year in this room learning about business analytics, which was a relatively new field at that point. This was in 2016. But it's now taken off hugely. So when I talk about maths and numbers, it's often in the context of kind of large data sets and how you can use those large data sets. So I did that degree and then spent 6 years at BP doing a variety of roles. So started in the pricing team, looking at all our pricing data, how we can be better at our pricing of fuel and see what the data's telling us and what we can do there. Then after a couple of years, we formed a bigger team. So I was leading the team. We called ourselves Consumer Insights and Analytics. So we were also then looking at our marketing data, our sales data, our locations data, to see what insights we could help the business with. And then after that, led the data science team for a period and then moved to Castrol, which is our lubricants brand at that point, and led digital and data for Castrol Asia Pacific. So the thread running through all those roles is how can we use data to better inform our business decisions. At that point, I was looking for a bit of a change, saw the role at Champion Data leading the data analytics team and thought, holy smokes, I didn't know such a role exists that perfectly combines my love of sports, my love of numbers, and my experience to date, and was lucky enough to secure that role. So I've been at Champion now for almost a year and a half. So my team is responsible for data analytics and data science, so taking our raw data that we capture that Chris was speaking about and augmenting it and helping it tell stories. So we capture that a player kicked the ball, a player marked the ball and where it happened, and then we take that and we work out how you can turn that into an insight that can inform a decision that can be made by a coach or that can tell the audience how the game is unfolding. And so I'll take you through kind of 3 different ways that maths, I guess, plays into what we do day to day. I hope these are tying in at the right level for what's going to be interesting for you guys. So I'll look at your reactions, and if it's not, doesn't look to be hitting the mark, I'll try and pivot. Let's go forward. So starting with geometry. It's funny that one of the most common things that we use is simple geometry. What's the distance between 2 points? And we capture a lot of our data on an X and a Y axis, where the middle of the ground is at 0, 0. The goals are at maximum X on both sides and Y equals 0, and then you've got the wings at the other side. And so one of the most common things is how far is the player moved the ball, which is the distance between point 1 and point 2. So it's funny that you think this is something in high school that you learn, but it's actually something we use pretty regularly and very, very easy for us to code up. The other thing is, within spatial shapes. So this is definitely one of champion data is laying out the field, just doing a plot of a field is actually in code uses that sort of geometry that you use when pretty early on in high school, and you think, I'm never going to need to draw an oval and define it as a distance. So as a starting point, that's actually something that's really common, but you don't know you're going to use it until you do. So that's the first kind of the simple level or basic level maths that is quite common in what we're doing. And it's the same for any sport you're doing. So for golf, we've got distances of shots, location compared to where the shot started, location to the hole, and how you work with that geometric data to make it tell stories and to make it be interesting and relevant to your audience, depending on who the audience is. Okay, so the next one then is statistics. So in high school, doing, I think there was specialist maths and maths methods, I think it was called. Further maths, I think, had most of the statistics work. And on reflection, that statistics background is the most useful thing in the data space. So some of the things that are really valuable is understanding sample sizes. So if we had a team has done something in the last 2 or 3 rounds, is that relevant? You need to be able to understand where you want to draw conclusions versus what can just be noise in data. So that statistics background is really valuable. Correlation and causation and the difference between them. We find a lot of correlations, not necessarily causations. So for example, our pressure rating here, you can deduce causation, but really it's a correlation between pressure rating and wind. So the form, I guess the start of that, as Chris said, was we want to identify how we can track pressure because we believe pressure is an important part of us being a successful team. And the previous stat that we had for that was just tackles. And tackles it had a reasonable correlation with the winning, so you win the tackle count, you win the game. But we found our pressure factor that we calculate has a higher correlation with being able to win a match. So understanding what is correlation, the value of correlation, and the leap from there to causation is valuable. And then the other one back from sample size is using how you summarize statistics. So using medians versus means, when to use one, when to use the other, how to treat outliers, all of those sorts of statistical foundations are actually really important whenever you're taking a large amount of data and trying to turn it into a story that you're conveying to an audience, which is effectively what data analytics is doing. At the same time, the statistical understanding is great. Having a domain expertise or knowledge to interpret the statistics that you're seeing is also critical. So whether that's yourself getting really familiar with a domain or working very closely with someone who is an expert in that space. So for us, we've got a huge team of footy experts in the office that we work with closely. For Live Golf, we've got a golf analyst expert who we work with closely to say, we've found this, is this relevant, what are we missing, what are we not thinking about? So it's really important combining that kind of maths and stats knowledge, but also with domain expertise to turn it into something that is valuable. And then the last one, going more advanced again, is in the data science space. So data science is probably not a very well-defined field. It can be super broad. Some people think it's super narrow, but I'm going to use it here as kind of more advanced analytics, anything that's models multiple variables together to get an outcome. So we use maths to underpin many of our models that we use day to day and go out to media and broadcast day to day. So things like our AFL player ratings, our Brownlow predictions, our golf win probabilities, and our netball and Nissan net points, they're all built off mathematical models. And so this is where kind of the more advanced spaces, so regression, calculus, matrices, and more, all come into the building of these models. So these days there's a lot of tools that you just need to say these variables and this target variable, can you please build me that model? But I've found that if you don't understand the maths behind the model, you won't pick the right model, you won't understand its flaws, its drawbacks, and you won't get a successful outcome. So understanding that maths, even if you're not the person that has to build the calculation step by step from the ground up, you need to have an understanding of the maths behind it to be able to choose the right model, explain it to an audience, and understand its flaws and effectively implement it. So those are the kind of, the spaces that that sort of maths that I learnt in high school has actually come through my education and my work to be something that I still use regularly. I think that's about it.
Is there a question? Do you want to kick off?
Can I leave this up here with someone and I'll thank you.
As a careers person, I'm sort of interested in the subject. Do you think that's necessary? I'm interested in the subject selection side of this to some extent, and from what you were saying, Lawrence, it sounds like a combination of general maths and maths methods would be the most useful in the data analytics area. Does that leave poor old specialist out in the cold again? Or,
There you go.
I also don't need this stuff.
if a student doesn't do general and doesn't get all those matrices and statistics, are they going to miss out a bit and not follow that path or not be interested in that path later?
It's been a while since I did them, so I can't remember exactly what's in specialist and maths methods. So I don't necessarily say what's in it. I just remember as I did more and more stats thinking that I missed out on this a little bit. So I don't want to say that methods and specialists don't give you all the skills you need, because they might, particularly a lot of the kind of calculus type of things that are inherent in a lot of the machine learning models, understanding things like gradient descent, what a local minimum is, why you can get stuck in a local minimum. I can't remember exactly which subjects those sorts of things came in. So I've used a lot of what we started learning through school and built on that. Still, it was just the statistics part felt like the part that wasn't there, rather than the other ones had stuff that I haven't used.
Didn't any of the maths teachers think we should be doing it differently, or redoing the
you go
subjects
first.
or something?
I think it's really important to encourage as many students as possible to do the math methods. And the main reason is you can do it at university. And many universities have these catch-up courses, but they do them very quickly. And they do these subjects instead of something else, something more interesting. So doing it in school over an extended period is helpful. And it gives you the confidence of, yes, I can do it. And I think that is one of the really big things. I taught in data science. I taught computer scientists who, when they hear the word matrix, they scream at me. I still teach them because they haven't done it at school. But they have that disadvantage when they come to university that they have to catch up instead of having that basis from which they can work. So as long as the math application is the bottom, which we definitely want, but I think if they can do the methods course, it would really make it a lot easier for them to learn the math, the stats. I don't think it's terribly important that they learn the stats at school, because a lot of math teachers in school are not trained as modern statisticians. And I appreciate what you said, that it actually resonated with you. But I think we have moved on a long, long way, and modern data science, modern statistical data science is actually a long way away from what we teach in school. So getting the foundation in school is great.
I just emphasise what Inga has said, in that the more you do in high school, the more you're able to do in university. So if you do specialist mathematics in university, at least at Monash, you're doing a Bachelor of Science, you start off at a higher level unit than if you've done maths methods, and if you've done maths methods, you start off at a higher level unit than if you've done further mathematics. So that allows more flexibility in your degree to do the advanced mathematics at third year. Again, I would emphasise that the basis for the statistics that we teach at university is the linear algebra and calculus that you learn in their first year, and the statistics and probability that is taught develops from that linear algebra and calculus.
That makes sense, thank you.
Any more questions?
I'm just sort of re-articulating something that I probably buried deep down inside in the 1990s, which says teaching the maths in the course is necessary, but it's not enough. And from what I'm hearing from you people, I'm hearing about thinking mathematically, about having a positive disposition towards it, and so on. So I'm wondering what you value from our graduates, what that you want them to come to you with.
Yes, you're right, it's not just maths. It just gives you it separates you to start with. So if everything else was equal and someone was good at maths and someone was not good at maths, obviously you go with someone who's good at maths. And what I was saying before is going to the gym for your mind, having doing especially this advanced maths, and I did advanced physics too at Melbourne Uni, and that really did stretch me back in the day. I remember it's like but is that enough? I think that's your question. As I said before, it's not enough. I mean, depending on your role, there are some very few roles. Some of our guys come in to work, put their headphones on, write code all day, stand up, take their headphones off, and walk home. So it's like, you can work from home. There's no need to come to the office. But there's very few jobs that you can work in that much isolation. Even the top coders now, they all work in teams, and you need a team lead, you need to all play your role, and you need to have each other's back and all those old-fashioned things. So I think having those soft skills, if you want to call them that, and I call it empathy, I think if you can't relate to people, you're going to really struggle in the workplace. Again, there are some jobs where you can be very, very good at maths and you don't have to. But in terms of what we're looking for and, building out a global sports data analytic business, I think those soft skills are really, really important as well. And it's also, if you've got 100 or more people, not everyone has to have the same skill set, obviously. It's using another football analogy, you've got to have your backs, your forwards, your defenders, and put all the magnets on the board and have an optimal team. But I think just being good at maths is not good enough if you really want to get into a career outside coding and doing pure maths. It's a pretty generic answer, but things like teamwork, did you play at sport or go to Girl Guides or Scouts? I remember thinking I did Scouts and Gubs, not that I loved it, but I did these corporate training days where they'd pay $2,000 a participant to do what we used to do in Scouts, which is to get a raft across the river. You'd have to work as a team, you'd have to delegate the leader, you'd have to do all this, and it was all very basic. And sometimes those soft skills I would say are vital if you want to grow a business. I don't know if anyone wants to add to that.
That's what we're trying to do in the Bachelor of Applied Data Science, to supplement the mathematics and the IT that they learn by these soft skills. So within that degree, from the get-go, they work on group-based projects where we give them data, they learn the skills that they need, the mathematics, the IT skills, and also the teamwork and the communication skills. So we have a huge emphasis on the communication of their results at the end of the semester, And they've got to do that over 4 semesters in the beginning of the degree. So we think that that's a highlight of the Bachelor of Applied Data Science, that it adds those soft skills that you get with the mathematical skills and the IT skills and the problem solving.
Yeah, just want to echo, I think, what Chris and Simon said. Also, I think we have been working, as a mathematician working in the financial industry. I do see lots of, I think, mathematicians got a PhD degree, but then they join the workforce working in the industry, and then they get bored, and then they quit, and then, I think one key, I think the soft skill set you need is, communication, and put yourself into others, shoes, and, translate your specialist knowledge into plain language. That's quite important. And also throughout our education, we try to, given we are sort of like a very niche specialist program, we look at every sort of student sort of their characteristic, and then think about what's your sort of, plan, study plan for you, whether you are really nerdy, just want to do maths, maybe we, come up with some research project and then for you to set up, and then maybe later on you can transition into a PhD in mathematics and maybe doing academic research. You could do that, but the majority of the people would like to have a mix of quant skills, mathematical skills plus some soft skills, so that they can transition from study into the workforce. And then that's why we have the internship components, and also try to bring in lots of industry people, give students presentation, writing sort of opportunities to help them to craft their sort of skills, not only mathematical knowledge, but also translate that into the business context. That's quite important.
Can I just emphasise what my colleagues have said in probably many different ways, but one of the skills that has changed in our university teaching is when we're looking at traditional mathematics, the answer is 42. And that's your problem solved. And that could be at the end of a long proof or whatever it is. And I'm exaggerating. But what we're now after is, what does my answer mean? Can I interpret my answer for the data expert, for the domain expert? What does it actually mean to them if I come up with 42? It's got to have a meaning. And I think it's the interpretation as well as the communication skills. You can call them empathy in the end, but I think it comes to the communication and being able to communicate not just with people like yourself who've done the mathematics and who understand the mathematics, but also people who don't know anything about mathematics and who don't actually care if you've done a hypothesis test with such or such a hypothesis. They want to know, what does it actually mean for me? Is this player going to be likely to be better next year, or is this player going to do worse because of whatever causation or correlation, whatever we're finding? It's the interpretation of what we're doing, and the interpretation in a language that not only we can understand, we the people who've done the analysis, but you as the consumer.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Just something quickly, and adding to that, it's the development of domain knowledge. Being able to talk to people in a particular organisation and understand what their problem is and translate it into mathematics, and then to explain that results to them. Yep.
Can I just add in the
I was
middle?
about to say, you go.
Sorry, it's a really popular question to respond to. I think we've talked a lot about, people with mathematical skill sets, and that's people adding on that communication side and that understanding side. But I think what I really want to see, especially out of the people that I recruit from the workplace, both out of high school or university, whether you do the bare minimum mathematics or not, is kind of less fear of mathematics, like whether you less of this I am a maths person or I'm not a maths person. I think we have far too many people in the workplace that kind of believe in this false dichotomy and that exist in the workplaces. Well, I'm not a maths person. And I think as we keep talking about, like, maths is everywhere, data is everywhere more and more and more. And I need less people in the workplace saying that I'm not a maths person, I'm afraid of it, and I'm not going to engage with you about this data aspect. And I need more people to come out of high school acknowledging that maybe I'm not, quote, a maths person, although personally I think you are, but to just be comfortable enough with even a very basic level of mathematics and to no longer think of it as other from them, because it is everywhere, and I need more people in the workplace to be comfortable with that. And in terms of the skills that we're looking for, it is like so many of the job interviews are things like general problem solving. Like the amount of, I don't know if anyone else has gotten these, but some of the job interviews are like, okay, what would you do if you need to figure out how many light bulbs are in Australia? You know, they're really like random things, but it's all about how do you systematically approach something. Say, okay, well maybe I need to look at the number of houses in Australia, or maybe I need to look at how many are broken, or how long, like just, you don't need to know the answer, but we're looking for people to approach a problem, whether that be mathematical or otherwise. But personally, I just want to see more people coming through not considering themselves not a maths person. Like that's what I really want. And being open to failure and being wrong. Like I've got too many overly confident people in the workplace that aren't open to questioning themselves, and they need like that mathematical approach of proving something is correct as opposed to assuming that you're correct and never revisiting it. Those are things that are really, really valuable out of my employees.
Well said. I think we've got one more. It's a long answer, just quickly.
Just to add on, I guess a story, the storytelling component. I think once you're out in kind of industry, you're very, very rarely working in a silo, and you're very rarely the person that is implementing the action that comes about from the mathematical analysis or that next action. So just being able to work with others and take them on the journey with you. So being able to explain what you've done, why, and providing the so what. The so what do we do with it now? So to what you said, what that next action looks like, being able to identify it and communicate it effectively.
And just one really quick one. When I said learning those soft skills, I used a pretty generic sport or scouts or guides or whatever. There's obviously lots more. Volunteering or creating a new idea, implementing something, being the head of a social group through COVID. It's just some story where you're communicating and you're making something happen. I think that's what we're looking for. And there's more than those sort of cliched ways of developing these broader skills, but just do something, just do something and with other people. Yeah.
Thanks for such an interesting panel and diverse opinions. No, big teacher. Sorry. I know things go in trends and swings and roundabouts and so forth. I've been in the career space for a long time, so I've seen lots of changes. One of the things that I think is really interesting is the prerequisites for tertiary entrance, which are obviously set 2 years in advance, so kids in year 10 are choosing appropriate subjects. And I'm very aware now that there are at least a couple of engineering degrees where you don't need any maths whatsoever. So as a careers practitioner, I go, okay, that's really interesting. Is that dumbing down the course? How do you explain that? The response from tertiary presenters is usually, well, you probably don't need to do maths methods or specialists because we're going to teach you the maths you need to be an engineer in the course. Okay, I can understand what those words mean, and I can understand the sequence of what you're saying, and I can go back and tell the kids that. I'm not sure if it's really true, but I don't know if that new situation is a response to the fact that we've got less students doing maths methods and specialists in the first place, and therefore tertiary people are saying, well, if we don't modify our prerequisites, we're going to be competing in a very small space for a reduced number of applicants. So this becomes a chicken and an egg thing. We're trying to attract candidates into our course. That fewer and fewer have got the traditional 2-level, high-level maths to go into the course, and now we've got to dumb it down to the point where we take people with no maths. So I'm really interested in hearing that kind of response and a response to this situation and how you can see that playing out, whether or not you think that the wheel will turn, and maybe after we produce a generation of engineers that, I don't know, shonky, whether or not that plays out in a different way and prerequisites flip back to what they have been. It's just an interesting kind of situation for careers people to be in, because you would presumably think that engineers would be doing hard maths before they start their degree. Sorry, long-winded, but I wanted to give you the backstory.
I'll just, before I hand over, you're right. I don't think I'd want to fly on a plane where an engineer didn't know maths, or drive over a bridge, obviously. So I think you can see why they're doing it. They want to have more people. You'd have to do the basic maths. Like, if you can't add up and you haven't got a propensity for numbers at all, then you can't do this sort of work. So I'm a bit old school like that. And it really is a big risk saying we can teach you maths from scratch once you get to uni. So if they fail in that comment, it's too late. Do you know what I mean? So you could dumb it down to a point where you have not the top 2 level maths, but you've got to have the basics. So there are universal truths in physics and maths that you cannot fake, or it's just the way the world works. I don't want to sound like I got my head in the sand or old fashioned, but it is, you know. And so yeah, I think I've never heard of that, but obviously they're trying to open it up to get more students, but you can go way too far with the pendulum. I think I might bring it back. But then I'd be really, really hard on testing the level of maths that's taught and the results in the maths from those universities, because
the trade-off between academic integrity and market share.
Yeah, exactly. I think you can bring the pendulum back a little bit, but that sounds like it's gone way too far. That's my initial impression.
Can I just say something which is probably common to all universities, and vice chancellors or the people who decide about the money bounce on seats. That's one of the very simple truths that has happened. The other issue is that there is a shortage of maths teachers, as you all know. And the two quantities reinforce each other. And I'm not speaking about the university I'm at the moment. I think that's generally has happened over a long period of time. It's not, I fully agree with what you've said. I don't want to fly on a plane. That is not designed by mathematicians or engineers who know a lot of mathematics. But the other issue is that at the university level, we've been teaching these bridging courses for such a long time. The university depends, many universities depend on this income. So giving up these sorts of incomes is detrimental to universities. So it's the bumps on seats, it's the combined problem, the maths teacher shortage, plus all the other things. It's not that we need less mathematics. And the other thing really is, if you're teaching the mathematics at university instead of at school, you're missing out on the data skills, on the domain knowledge, these sort of areas that you could learn at university. And we're good at teaching these, but because we've got to teach you the background mathematics, often at the wrong time, because you don't actually want to know, you don't want to do 3 courses of mathematics. I've taught statistics to first-year biology students. They don't care about it. When they need it is in their 3rd year, when they need to know some of the statistics they're using for their analyses. That's when they want to find out about it. But because their background is so poor, we have to teach them often at a time when it's not very suitable. So I think it's a complex problem. The short answer is we still need as much mathematics as we've always done for these degrees.
Thank you.
Yeah. Again, just a quick comment. It's the eternal battle between academics and administrators. And again, if you have to teach the mathematics, you miss out on more advanced stuff in the higher part of the degree.
I want to offer a different perspective, which potentially controversial. I think it's great that universities are starting to loosen the requirements for entry into these specialist courses like engineering or like computer science or data science. I think it's more accessible, especially for students who are exiting school in areas of the country that don't offer these specialist mathematics subjects. I think that produces a really good opportunity for those students. But the controversial opinion for me is more that we should, as universities, make things more accessible, but that requires a bit of a tango with schools to encourage participation as well. I think potentially, because I'm an outreach fellow, I work with schools and students and teachers. One thing that I try to do with my team when we visit a school is to say, well, just because you don't need maths doesn't mean it's not an advantage for you to take maths. Because I'll give you an example. There's one thing that I went through my engineering degree at Monash actually, and Simon, you were my lecturer, by the way.
There's quite a few.
Yeah.
We've been through my classes.
Yeah, that's right. And I majored in maths, but I was also doing a double degree in mechanical engineering. Now, with my major in maths, I was able to really gain an intuitive and conceptual grasp on something called a Fourier series. And a Fourier transform is super foundational to lots of engineering applications. However, my peers in engineering who weren't doing maths really struggled with the intuition and the conceptual ideas behind that area of engineering. So while it is not a requirement, it is certainly an advantage. I think that schools and teachers and career practitioners could take that as a slight encouragement to say, yeah, you don't need it, but you're going to have a huge advantage if you do take maths in school. That gives you such a head start. So that's all. If anyone else want to add?
I have a question that sort of takes it back to the high school level. I was walking to my class earlier this year and I walked past what I thought was the Year 12 specialist class. It was actually our methods class and it had 8 students in it. We have a student body of 1,500 students at our school. So my question is more about, for you guys who are key stakeholders in this, because you get the outcome of what we're doing in schools. To me, there's sort of 2 ways that I see maths being taught, and I'm not a maths teacher, by the way, psychology teacher. But there's a sort of a standard approach with a textbook. You pass sort of content and you have to pass that to move to the next stage. Or there's the other sort of model, like maths pathways, I think it's called, which is a very individualised, sort of personalised maths program that is based on the ability level of the student at the time and progressing at their level of competency so they experience more success and have, I suppose, a higher sense of mathematical self-esteem. What's your opinion about how maths is taught in schools and what is your opinion on what we should be doing? Because obviously at the moment there's huge reductions in numbers of maths students at methods and particularly specialists. That's like an extinct species at our school. It keeps going because we offer it, because we want to have it there. But usually we don't offer a VCU subject that has less than 10 students. So.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And I think at school, something that I've noticed in the last 2 years of working with schools in outreach capacity is we might come across the occasional teacher or student who comes past, oh, what are you guys doing? We're doing a maths workshop for your maths interested cohort. And we might get the occasional comment saying, oh, I was really bad at maths. You know, like that instinctive response to, oh, a maths thing is happening, stay away. And I think it's something that we can do as an overall, all of the stakeholders involved is to applaud rather than dismiss and reject and say, oh, that's really good, tell me more about it. So approach it from a place of curiosity. And for me as an outreach fellow, when I go into school and someone says, oh, you're doing a maths thing, I was really bad at maths, I'm not a maths person. So echoing what Mabel was saying, you don't have to be a maths person. If you've done maths, you are a maths person. So yeah, I think my position is all of the stakeholders should be, I guess, trying to adopt a more positive disposition towards and attitudes towards things that are going on in the school, outside of school, that are maths related. I'll pass it on to someone else.
I'm being a school maths advisor. I just thought I'd jump in because I am a maths advisor in schools. One of the things that AMSI really tried to work on in the Choose Maths project was ensuring that teachers are teaching maths conceptually. All right, the old paradigm of walking into a classroom, opening up a book, we're doing exercise 3A today, here's how you do it. Do the left-hand side. Now, oh, you finished, do the right hand sign. I'm sure you all recognise that. That is what is putting people right off because, as Inga said, the answer is not 42 anymore. You know, the answer is, I don't know, let's work on this together. In order to do maths, you have to fail. You have to keep trying. There's lots and lots of things. I bet your statistics didn't come up the way you wanted them the first 50 million times you tried. And so it's the way that we're teaching maths, it's not, Maths Pathways is just sort of like a fancy sort of online program that has its detractors. I'm talking about teaching maths conceptually. There are lots of different, it's I guess like a fancy textbook. There are lots of different ways of teaching maths, but our main aim is to teach the maths conceptually so that the students, and those students, and I venture to suggest the students like Mabel, the ones that said, but why? And oh, I just noticed this. That wasn't in chapter 3A. I bet you noticed heaps of stuff that wasn't in chapter 3A. And your teacher sort of brushed it aside because you were just being annoying. You were taking it. It's a crowded curriculum and it takes a lot of time to get through it. Work on your professional learning. Read the latest research into maths education. There's a lot of research to show that especially students, and there are a lot of them, with some sort of neurodivergence, they want to know why. They don't want to know that the answer is 32. Why? 42, sorry. Why is it that? And why would we want to know that? Oh, we want to know that because we want to know all of these, in all these careers, and you can actually make it so much more relevant to their lives.
Oh,
Go.
that's great. I think it's this institution, almost their top challenge, is marketing maths because that's not being done well for generations, and I love your call, maths gives you huge advantages. That message is not getting through, right through from year 7 onwards, so it's almost how this body gets those messages through the schools, because if I always solve problems by being in the shoes of the person. So you're a 14-year-old student, why should I do maths? It's hard, it's a bit nerdy. But if you know that there's huge advantages in life by doing it, then that's a reason. And you've got to try and just make it logical, or not logical, make it appealing for these young people to choose maths, not because it's got a marketing problem almost, like it's too hard, it's too nerdy, it's not worth it basically. Why should I put that effort in when I don't get the benefit? There are actually huge benefits, but the kids are not being told it. So I think we should take this as a challenge, first day here, to market maths through the high schools. I know that's what you do, but just do it really creatively and just put yourself in the mind of a high school student and why they should put the effort in to do maths, because it really is worth it. And there's a perception problem. I remember, I'm not proud of this, but I just had a flashback to in year 11, I think it was, or 12, they picked the top 12 maths students to go on maths camp. And somehow I got picked on it, and we were getting in a bus on a Friday afternoon going through, and we drove past the team playing footy, and I dived under the window because I was too embarrassed to be one of the nerds going on a maths camp, whereas I should have been proud that I was in the top 12 maths students. It mightn't have been because they recognised some ability there, but that was my initial reaction as a 16 to 17-year-old student. It was embarrassment for being good at maths, so that should be flipped around. You should be as proud to be on that camp as you are to play for the first 18 or something like that. So there's your challenge.
And that other idea that you don't have to be in the top 12 to actually do that. I noticed on Inga's slides, the ATAR for the maths course was high 60s. Now, there would be kids of yours that get high 60s that would say, I can't do maths. Why not? Obviously, they haven't got millions dropping out in this course. They teach them how to do the maths. Even if they haven't got their 50s for maths, they might have got a 25. But obviously, if they're accepted into that course, they're going to be taught that stuff. So I think that idea of not having to be in the top 1, 2, 10, 12, 15, 20, 30, whatever. I think that's really, really important. Do maths, even if you can't, because you will be able to.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just
Sorry, that's a really good point, because you're right. The punchline of that story took away from my main message, which is to market maths, make everyone want to do it, because it will help you, and it shouldn't be just those top people.
Yeah, I'm aware we're eating into time, but I'm totally loving the flow. If everyone's happy that we're continuing to have this conversation, is everyone okay with that? Yep.
Can I add to that question, just for you guys to consider as well? Do you think that undervaluing of maths education is coming from the society and the education department? I come from other states where students had to do maths until the end of year 12, and I came to Victoria and was quite shocked that not even a basic maths education is carried through to grade 12. What are your thoughts on that? Because, you know, everyone is able to do some level of maths that's applicable across their lives.
Yeah, honestly, all of this is my favourite thing to talk about, and I could talk about it for hours, and I will try and keep it short. But 100% agree that we have a huge kind of cultural attitudes towards maths problem, definitely in Victoria, definitely in Australia, and we do need a rebrand. I think, as I was talking about before, we have a lot of people identifying as maths people, and those continue to become more and more normalised, which I think is part of this sort of cultural view of we've made maths be this really elitist, difficult, hard to attain, only the brightest of the bright are mathematicians. And so it makes it really difficult for people to identify as a maths person. And then as almost, I think, a cultural defense mechanism, we've now had to normalize not being a maths person. People bond over it. They're like, you're not a maths person? Me neither. Or I can never do that. Or even that's great for you. I value maths for you guys. You know, there's this really distancing of it. And I think that makes it really hard for people to value it. And then in terms of how we're teaching it, again, echoing I think it gets really hard as we get to VCE, but it's a really complicated problem because it's a compounding factor. Obviously, I think it's really important to teach conceptual understanding of mathematics, as we keep talking about today. Those are the real skills that carry through. But then again, the curriculum is really dense and content heavy, and so it's really hard. I think part of the reason why some people turn to Maths Pathway or other methods is because you need to differentiate the teaching, and if you're missing, students get to VCE with such a varied, patchy understanding of the different mathematical content skills that it makes it really hard to carry them through. And I think that's why we have a really high kind of dropout of mathematics. And so I think there's multiple levels where we need to interfere. But even my personal experience of going through VCE, I had to I was at a different school in year 11 to 12. The year 11 school did not offer specialist mathematics or advanced general mathematics because they didn't have a large enough cohort. So I was sort of self-teaching that out of a textbook. And then when I moved school, they wouldn't let me do specialist maths because I hadn't completed the prerequisite course. And so I literally was in the principal's office begging to do it, ensuring, because again, it was a selective entry school, so I had to assure them that I would do okay before they would let me do it. And so I think there's this really hard push and pull, especially when you get to VCE, because you want to teach concepts, you want to teach students to love and question and build on that curiosity and interest of maths that helps them choose it in the first place. But then you're kind of playing a numbers game of the ATAR score and university admission, and so people are choosing their subjects not purely out of interest, but out of what's going to get me into university. And so I think that's a really hard game to play. That's quite complicated, but something that we kind of need to consider. I'm losing my train of thought, but we can talk about this at lunch.
So that's what I was
Can I
about
just
to
mention?
suggest. Maybe we'll finish off this answer and then we'll break for lunch and we can continue to talk over lunch.
Can I just say very quickly, one of the problems is the question whether you should do year 12 mathematics or not is probably as old as our education system. It's very difficult to push people. We have English typically as a subject that everybody has to do. And people understand that because we all need English. What they don't understand the same way is that we need mathematics. But making math compulsory and pushing everybody to do mathematics, I don't think it's the right way, especially while we have a teacher shortage. A lot of kids are put off by mathematics very early in high school. There's a big change from primary school to high school. We've done that through the AMSI work and Choose Math work. We know a lot about the step up to high school. We have a lot of out-of-area teachers in mathematics. these people are not always able to instill the love of mathematics that a mathematician might get across. And it's too easy, and the government does that all the time, blame the math teachers for all sorts of things, and they shouldn't, because it's not our fault. We can't always cope with it, and having to teach mathematics to year 12 presumably means that more out-of-area teachers would be teaching the earlier levels of mathematics, because year 7 and year 8 you can still teach, but not 11 and 12. That means we instill this not lack of mathematics, but something like the opposite from very early on. And I don't think that's the right way to go about it. What we need is more help for existing mathematics teachers or the teachers who want to teach more mathematics. The way Leanne was describing the love of mathematics, enthusiasm, the connection with applications, all these areas, we can help you. Combined, AMSI is doing a lot in that direction, and I think that's where we really need to push before we go, everybody needs to do year 12 mathematics. That's my personal opinion.
Great. Well, I think that's a really good spot to finish up. I find it really interesting that we've ended up in a spot where we're talking about the culture. And you are talking AMSI's language. It's exactly what we talk about a lot. It's like there's a culture of maths in Australia, and it's something that and marketing is a problem. You're absolutely right. So, I love the fact that the ecosystem is here today and talking about it. And with that, I want to say thank you to all of our speakers for your time and your insights and your assistance to the maths and careers teachers that we have here in the room today. And just my thanks, AMSI's thanks, everyone's thanks. If you can put your hands together.